Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wall Street Blockchain Alliance's policy update for December 2024. Ron Quaranta here with my amazing colleagues and guests, Dina Ellis and Adam Goldberg. Before we begin, our usual disclaimers. Obviously, please keep in mind that everything discussed, nothing should be considered accounting, investment, legal, or any kind of advice whatsoever. And then obviously everything Dina and Adam and I are discussing, our own personal opinions, do not necessarily represent the opinions of our respective firms. Thank you all for joining us on LinkedIn and also on Twitter. If you've got questions or comments for our policy geniuses, please put it in the chat, and Dina and Adam, and we'll try to address it with us. Dina, Adam, it's been a little bit. We've got an election behind us. I want to kick off. We're still dealing with the election kind of review, and Adam, you really helped with the prep notes, and I'm grateful for that. Trump wins. Sherrod Brown loses. Dina, I should have made a wager with you instead of the wagers where I lose that Sherrod Brown. You had thought Sherrod Brown.
The one time you would have won some wagers, Ron.
The one time
I know. I thought he was. I did think that he was going to pull it because he always has historically won before.
Right, Dina. Let's start with you. We've arguably got coming up in January. Whatever your political views or affiliations, arguably the most pro-crypto Congress, at least since crypto's been around. Let me start with you, Dina. What happened with Sherrod Brown, and was crypto part of the balancing or tilting of the scales? And what's your perspective on the new Congress?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Sherrod Brown, of course, that is one component. Obviously the crypto contributions were certainly one component of him, being with him losing. But I also think it was just the mood of the country in terms of people feeling literally hungry, literally, and figuratively hungry, and wanting change. And you saw that across the country in many states. I was following Pennsylvania closely because that's where I'm from, and of course that was sort of the central place everyone was looking, was Pennsylvania. What I would say about this election in terms of crypto is I would say I'm kind of awestruck by it. I have seen elections where, the House and the Senate, there's a sweep, right? And I've seen, you get a Republican president and you sweep everything. But in terms of crypto, this is the most pro-crypto Congress, but also most crypto administration, assuming that, what we've heard from these different potential nominees is going to come to fruition. You've got a pro-crypto president, a pro-crypto vice president. You got a pro-crypto, naming for the Treasury Secretary, Bessent. You got pro-crypto even at HHS. I could go on and on. And then I've seen candidates being screened and saying, well, we're not taking this candidate because they're not pro-crypto. So it's really been incredible to watch. Yep. And I've been, as I can say, I am kind of blown away. I have never seen that kind of outcome where an industry has that much influence.
Dina, we started talking about the election. As you can see, the sun decided to move and sear me.
I'm wearing my red today because I think it's okay to be like a little, now that I feel like I can kind of like be like, okay, I'm a Republican right this moment, but yeah.
Adam, weigh in on this as well when we talk about the election and to the points that Dina made. And, when we talk about a pro-crypto president, to play devil's advocate, Adam, it wasn't too long ago when incoming President Trump did not really like crypto. Give us your perspectives on the election. And was this a cynical play for votes, or is there a more substantive policy here?
Well, I think everything should, they're politicians, so you should read it as both. There's both. It was a cynical play for votes, and obviously that was a successful part of it, but also most of the people that now surround Trump and in his inner circle, and I think the most important people in his inner circle people should always consider are his family. They are now crypto entrepreneurs. Supposedly his youngest son, Barron, is very involved in these crypto efforts and was, if you believe some of the reports, one of the main keys to Trump winning was this entire podcast strategy of really focusing on young male voters and going to podcasts that are important to them. One thing that should be noted is Donald Trump has a young late teen son who's about to go to college and seems very connected to this world and seems to have guided his father into which Evan used to go to and which stances to be more friendly to, and then a lot of people surrounding him. But I think it goes broader than Trump. I think one thing we should look at is the Fair Shake PAC, which was the main crypto PAC. I think it was the biggest spender in the Senate and House elections in the entire country. They, I think, won 98% of the races they targeted. And one of the most things that I think everyone should note is they were bipartisan. They supported Ruben Gallego in Arizona, and they supported Elisa Slotkin in Michigan. Two of, as Dina said, this was an election somewhat unlike any other we've seen. In the 2016 and 2020 elections, when Trump won, only one senator won a seat that their party didn't win that state. It was Susan Collins in 2020 in Maine. This time, 4 senators in states Trump won went to the other party, which is a level of ticket splitting we have not seen, but I think should be noted. 2 of those Democratic senators that won in Trump states were pro-crypto and had the support of the Fair Shake PAC and did win their races, and especially the Slotkin race was pretty close. Gallego kind of won going away against Lake. But I think, as Dina said, people were desiring for change. But also, we have some interesting anti-incumbent dynamics now going on in this country. We have not had the incumbent party lose the White House 3 straight times in the United States since the late 1800s. We also have seen incumbents across the board, especially if they're not in this. Brown is one example. But I think we had talked about going into the election. Harris needed to make Ohio closer to give Brown a chance to win. Not only did that not happen, Ohio got redder. So most of the red states, I mean, really everywhere in the country got redder, essentially. But if you're in a Trump +8, +9 state, and then that state becomes Trump +11, +12, to outrun the top of your ticket by a presidential candidate in a race like that is almost impossible. I think only in Nebraska did Dan Osborne, I think he was the only double-digit person to outperform his ticket, and he still lost by 10 because Trump won the state by 20.
Adam, Dina, good point. I want to raise one thing because you said something important there, Adam. You said this kind of I want to call it an anti-incumbent, a push against incumbency broadly. Do you I saw the news. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm looking at the data, I think that also spills over when we look at the presidential race. I don't believe Vice President Harris flipped a single county.
No, that was on election night. She did end up flipping counties, but they were out west. So basically, if you look. Almost everything from Mountain Time east, she essentially didn't win a county. She did win some county. She did improve in some counties in Colorado and a couple in California, a couple on the West Coast. But generally, I think it's important to point that out. I think also what's very interesting is we've now had the second straight election where the president. So typically, presidents do win in a sweep. The most likely scenario in every model was one candidate sweeps the swing states. The other second most likely model was another candidate sweeps the swing states. What is not seemingly likely, or something that people expected, is both when Biden won, the Democrats were in power in the House and lost seats. Trump won, the Republicans are in power in the House and they lost seats. They have a smaller majority today than they did when the election started, which if you had told everyone that the election is going to be 2 to 3 points redder.
I was going to say not
the Senate, but that's more to do with the map, right? Because again, 4 Democrats won in states Trump won, but just on the House level, that's not an outcome you would typically expect. Typically, presidents, especially with the popular vote, he won the popular vote, you would expect that to carry to essentially a big Republican margin like he had when he won in 2016. He lost the popular vote in 2016 and had a much bigger margin in the House. So it's a very interesting dynamic we have going on with a lot of cross currents.
Adam, I appreciate that. And, again, whatever someone's personal political preference is, it was a pretty... it's a fascinating study in data.
Yeah, I mean, Dina, go ahead. I was going to say, I was stunned by it. I will say anecdotally that, I mean, this, of course, Maryland was, a state that votes Democrat always, but this was the first time that I went to vote. And usually I kind of like sneak in to vote, this was the first time where like a bunch of my friends were like sitting at the Republican table. I mean, you had a record Latino vote, a record Black vote for Republicans. Obviously, the Israel issue, that was a big issue. And as I said, people they were like, things have to get better in this country. And I spoke to a lot of friends in Pennsylvania, like the suburbs of Philly, the suburbs of Pittsburgh. And for them, the inflation is just, they wanted change.
Dina, Adam, thank you both so much. Bringing it back to crypto, Adam, Dina, you both referenced something and you mentioned Fair Shake Pack. Adam, for a long time in the crypto space, the three of us and so many members of the WSBA had talked about crypto being nonpartisan broadly. Adam, let me bring this question to you again. Politics or political party aside, this became a pretty partisan crypto year, I would argue. Did that hurt Vice President Harris?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt, and I'm not really sympathetic to arguments that it didn't. I mean, I think her approach to crypto was her approach to the campaign, which was not successful, which is being overly cautious. When she did come out with a crypto plan, it was specifically targeted at Black men rather than having a broad crypto policy that people could rally behind. Obviously, Trump went to speak to the Bitcoin conference. She did not. Trump openly courted crypto voters. She did not.
Yeah.
And I think in politics, when you have a losing campaign, especially a losing campaign in a close race, Trump won very decisively in the swing states, but he had the fourth smallest margin in the popular vote, I think, in a century. So it was a close race. I think I saw an analysis that this was an R+2 year. If it was just a D plus 0.5 year, she's the president. So that close in the national shift. But I don't think that, and I was someone that had previously posited that I don't think it would do harm to her campaign, that there may not be significant overlap, but clearly it was. It showed that she was overly cautious. She didn't fully embrace the community, and I think the community was very rational in this election. They viewed it as a existential election for the future of crypto and digital assets in the United States. They viewed Harris, even if she was more crypto friendly than the Biden administration, would likely not achieve the goals that the industry has wanted for almost a decade now, which is a clear regulatory framework, which is a lessening of enforcement at the SEC, which is a guide path to bringing things more into the traditional financial space. Almost all of those were not clearly articulated by her, but very clearly articulated on the Republican side. And when you have the biggest spender in the election going only one way, again, outside a couple of House and Senate races they supported, it's going to hurt you. And in a close race, when you lose, everything you did wrong is going to be dissected. And this was definitely something that Democrats need to look at. You can't just ignore this constituency anymore. They're incredibly powerful.
Dina, do you agree?
It is powerful, but I do think there's more to this election than that. But I think we want to probably talk a little bit about crypto and blockchain. And but I think there's a lot more to that. Not everyone that's voting is thinking about crypto. Clearly, crypto had a big influence, but I think that there is more to it with people feeling that Harris, we didn't really know what she was thinking. A lot of her campaign in terms of women, it was all about abortion. I think women think more about things like than just abortion. People felt, a lot of people who aren't college educated felt like they were being treated as not intelligent. And I think there was more to this, but crypto certainly played a significant role across the country.
Ron, can I mention one thing just on this subject that I think is
10
just
seconds,
important
buddy. We got to go to the next topic.
No, it's just something. There was polling done. Obviously, this is by a crypto-aligned firm, but polling done by Paradigm, and what they found was the national popular vote among non-crypto holders was tied. The national popular vote among people that held crypto was 20 plus Trump. So if you think that, and again, that's I think about 15% of the population right now. If you think 15% of the population in a tied race moves like 20% lead to one candidate, that's his entire margin victory. Again, this comes from a crypto aligned firm, but it's just something to think about. This was a consideration for some voters, and also Democrats didn't show up in this election. Biden got 8 million votes,
I think
and she got 74. So some of those voters might have been these young voters that are crypto friendly that might have just said, I don't like my party, maybe I won't vote for Trump, but I'll sit out the election, and that's enough to lose.
I was just going to say, I think that there's a little bit more to it. I do think crypto voters obviously played a role. A lot of younger people voted for Trump, but you also have to look through it through that lens of, again, there were many people who are, either they're not college educated, the libertarian types of people that don't want, sort of in their minds, we'll call it elitists telling them what to do, played a significant role in this election. And the people that are most people that are passionate about crypto and investing in crypto, they have those characteristics. So it doesn't shock me, but very impressive for sure.
Dina, Adam, I suspect that the election will be analyzed by us and others for many months, if not years to come. Dina, let me stick with you on one thing. Emma, thanks for showing up. Really looking forward to seeing you on Friday. Emma Channing is one of our favorite guests and watchers for all of our events and all of our broadcasts. Dina, let me stick with you. You know, we've often talked about elections, and everyone was focused on the presidential election as whether it's pro or anti-crypto. And I think you and I had a discussion several months ago that the real change, the real issue will be the Senate. We have now a new Senate Banking Committee chair, if I recall correctly, coming up for January. Not exactly pro-crypto. What are your thoughts about how much resistance can be put up in the Senate by the minority party?
I mean, sure. So, I mean, the first thing is that we should keep in mind that now that the Republicans have a majority, and what is it? It's like 53 to 47. Now that the Republicans have the majority, every single nominee has to be confirmed in the Senate, and you need 51, right? So, and the Republicans have more than 51, which is very important.
Well, you need 50 plus one, because Vance could break the tie. But
okay, so 50 plus one, but you get it. Just 51, right? And so that it means that Republicans have a lot more say in terms of who are going to be the nominees, both in the legislative branch, but also in the judicial branch. Yeah. In terms of the Senate, I would say to you that, you know, the chairman will be Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. He is very much a pro-business Republican. I've heard only pro-business things out of him, coming from Tim Scott. I do think that he will continue to allow Lummis and whoever else, maybe Moraine, whoever else winds up on the committee, on the Senate Banking Committee. Yeah. I think he will defer to them. The one component, this is probably the most difficult part of the elections for the financial services industry, and that would be that since Brown lost, Senator Elizabeth Warren has now become the ranking member of the Senate Banking Committee, and that certainly will make things, tougher. You still need that 60 vote threshold to pass legislation, except for in things like budget reconciliation. You know, there are some ways you can do things with less, but it's a significant change, and you can do a lot of things. Let me say one thing. You can do a lot of things with a Republican administration from a regulatory standpoint that couldn't be done in the last administration.
Dina, good point. Adam, let me ask you this kind of candid question, which might be bit more controversial than I mean it to be. Is the anti-crypto army in Washington dead?
I don't know about dead, but they've lost a lot of ground. I mean, there were 60 votes to repeal SAB 121 with the CRA resolution in this current Senate. As I said, we now have senators, the new Senate. I would imagine if you just took out the old anti-crypto senators and put in the new senators, almost all of them who were elected are pro-crypto. You're probably over that magical 60 vote number just on a hand count. So that really does kind of open the door to the I guess, holy grail of legislation we've all been waiting for, which would be some kind of crypto regulatory framework that could pass the House, that could pass the Senate, pass a filibuster and be signed by the president. But they will be vocal. I mean, as Dina said, Senator Warren will have a perch from the Senate Banking Committee. She will certainly put forward her point of view, but it is hard to understate how they basically lost the war. I mean, as Dina said, there's so much that could be done from a regulatory perspective. I'm sure we will get into it, but it seems there's reports now that Paul Atkins is going to be the SEC chair. There is going to be a crypto advisor role in the White House, some kind of crypto czar, crypto advisor, crypto counsel. Obviously, Trump has endorsed the idea of a Bitcoin strategic reserve. There are numerous things on the playbook, but I think obviously we all hope for a regulatory framework, and that may come in the new year. But as Dina has noted, there is so much from a regulatory enforcement perspective that's now going to flip 180 degrees. So you're going to see banking regulators that were anti-crypto or not thought it was a systemic risk, denying charters, wanting pre-clearance from the OCC. You could see almost all of that go away.
Adam,
OCC, Dina, I'm just saying. So I don't know if the war is over, but they are significantly diminished force, I would say now.
Adam, Dina, thank you both so much. It really brings us to something as the sun decides to cook me here in the corner. I'm so sorry about that. Let's get to kind of the deep end of the pool here. We've been talking about the SEC. You mentioned, I believe President Trump was nominating or is nominating Paul Atkins. I just saw the latest report. I think I shared it with you both by email that he's kind of hesitant to quote unquote clean up the mess at the SEC. Dina, let me start with you on this. We've had this conversation internally at the WSBA, and one of the things I'm hoping the crypto industry realizes is whoever the new SEC chair is, when they come in, there's no magic wand waving, and all of the cases in the various district courts go away, correct?
I mean, that is correct, but I think that the SEC will, I think they're going to push hard where there's like true fraud and
Sure.
those and things like that and enforcement. But I think there will be other instances where the SEC doesn't move forward on certain, like they don't appeal or they don't move forward with a case. I don't think we will see this continued level of enforcement actions just because, and we saw a ton of them with the exchanges saying, you're listing cryptocurrencies that are securities. I think we're going to see that type of attack go away. But again, to the extent that there were ones where there's a lot of fraud with consumers losing a great deal of money, I do not think that those types of cases go away.
Dina, thanks. Adam, let's address Liam Murphy's question. Liam, thank you so much for joining us. Thoughts on the SEC issuing no action guidance, registration only enforcement actions? Dina, to your point, fraud issues aside, Adam, how likely is no action guidance on a more pervasive basis?
I want to say that I think I agree. I'm going to say that I think that is very likely. But go ahead, Adam.
Go.
So I would agree with that assessment that it is likely. I think the commission is going to find ways to accomplish things that in ways such as no action relief, other ways they can. Also, one thing we're going to be looking out for is even if Paul Atkins is chair, who is he going to pick as head of enforcement? Because that is really the main decision maker for at least the litigation cases and what they go after. I think a good model to probably look at that we're probably going to see the SEC look more like is really what the CFTC has looked like under Chair Benham. Chair Benham has really gone after some of like the biggest frauds, let's say the FTXs and others, but really kind of kept his powder dry on a lot of these very contentious issues that Gary Gensler and the SEC has weighed into. I would expect the Trump SEC and banking regulators generally to take that approach. Try to, if they are able to give guidance, I think from what I've heard about Paul Atkins, I don't think that they're going to try and push a regulatory framework without getting Congress on board. So, but I think everything up until that they could do administratively using the administrative state as it currently exists, I think they will try to do.
I was going to say you can easily,
real quick, Dina, go ahead.
For instance, you can easily, I'll give you one example, change the accredited investor standard. That's a fairly, so I'll just give you one very easy example of a way to make changes that a new chairman can make. And, Atkins has been in this world for a long time. He's pro crypto, but he also knows a lot about the SEC and the securities laws and a lot of the commissioners have worked for him before. He's clearly and he's represented the crypto industry. He will be a very pro crypto chair.
Dina, Adam, thank you both. Let me push back on this just a little bit. As a non-attorney, I'd love your perspectives, and certainly anyone in the audience. Liam raises a good point. I understand where you're going with the no action guidance. You can't regulate an entire industry just on no action guidance, though, can you?
Well, the thing I would note is that some of the current commissioners, such as Hester Pierce and Ueda, have been very critical of previous no action guidance, even that was issued back in the last Trump administration, that has really impacted the crypto industry. I don't think this is their preferred way to regulate the industry. I just saw David popped in and he asked if likely SAB 121 will be addressed. I would almost be positive that they will put a new head they will change the makeup of the accounting board and I'm sure there will be a new head of finance at the SEC, and my expectation is that would be fully withdrawn.
My old friend David Brill reading my mind, because that's literally the next bullet point. Dina, go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, I think of, SAB 121 is one of the ways to keep, crypto out of the banking system. At the end of the day, that's what it does. And you also have the problem with Operation Choke Point. Again, away from banking, the crypto industry. These are two big hurdles in terms of this industry. I do think that these things will be modified. Operation Choke Point is a bigger issue because it's not just about crypto. It's about we don't like this particular, we don't like guns, so we're gonna push back on, lending to gun shops or whatever. So it's bigger than that. So I think both of those things will be attacked. But on SAB 121 and some of the Operation Choke Point when it comes to crypto, I do think we're going to see a change, and it's going to, and it's an important change. However, I think people will need a little bit of patience until the administration decides who are going to be, the next head of the OCC, the next FDIC, but also get a sense of the health of the banking system and where the banking system is in a much broader way than just crypto.
Dina, let me thank you so much for that. I want to build on that a little bit because you said something interesting. SAB 121 prevents crypto from being part of the banking system. And we get that was its kind of the principal design of it. That said, SAB 121, as updated, I guess is the comment, allows for the incumbents to be the only winners in this space. I think it was BNY Mellon was announced that they were the one who got the exemption. How possible? Go ahead.
No, but I mean, you're talking about the exemption. They're already regulated. That was TradFi, and I think I like Bank of New York Mellon, and I like TradFi
too.
But I think this is we're going to bring life into other crypto native companies or other companies that we haven't even heard of yet. So I think this, you're going to bring more competition and more innovation into the system. So I do think we will see a change to SAB 121. I don't know what it's going to look like exactly. Part of it is we don't, until the SEC chair is confirmed. I could see, this taking some time, a little bit of time, but it would be it's really holding the industry back. And I can see why the industry was concerned about, giving Bank of New York Mellon an exception, and then others an exception. I can see why the SEC did it. They said, oh, these are heavily regulated companies. That said, I do think that this issue will be resolved.
Dina, Adam, thank you both so much. Liam's comment, SAB 121 causing debanking of crypto is a very smart point. Dina and Adam always make very smart points. Liam, thank you for joining us. Question from Emma. Do Dina and Adam really think Atkins wants the SEC's current challenges? To the point of the article we talked about, literally inside commentary has been he just doesn't want to, quote unquote, clean up Gary Gensler's mess. Is there still an opportunity for Teresa Goulian?
Well, again, I would just note that depending on his chair of enforcement and how empowered that person is, he may not have to do much of the cleaning up of the mess. There's a lot of cases, as Dina said, some of the cases that have already gone to trial, but many of the Wells notices that have been issued that have not yet proceeded to trial, those could just be ended immediately by the enforcement chair as soon as they get in and they say, this doesn't align with my regulatory priorities. Another thing I mentioned a little bit earlier that I think will be interesting is one of the biggest things holding back the industry in addition to SAB 121 is the OCC pre-clearance guidance, where basically if you're an OCC regulated bank and you want to do anything related to crypto or digital assets, you need specific pre-authorization from the Office of Comptroller of Currency.
It's actually all three of the, it's all three of the prudential regulators. So it's the FDIC, the Fed, and the FDIC, the Fed, and the OCC. You cannot do anything with crypto without.
I would expect Scott Bessent, as soon as he is confirmed as Treasury Secretary, to rescind that guidance, because essentially it's not a rule. It is something that was put forward as guidance by the SEC to banks they regulate. Banks have to follow the guidance, but it's because it's guidance, just like an executive order, it could go away with a snap of the finger, and that is actually one of the things I would think Bessent will remove on day one.
I would say that all those agencies are independent agencies. So, I mean, OCC is part of Treasury, but in a way they have a unique sort of position in terms of as a banking regulator. But, this is something, again, that will be determined by each of the banking regulators, and they may coordinate it and they may not coordinate it. And again, this is a problem they're going to want resolved, but the new as new people come into these agencies, they will want to look more broadly at the banking system and the health of the banking system, for things that have nothing to do with crypto. Like, I'm just going to list, commercial real estate or the level of, people have record levels of debt. So they're going to want to get a sense of where we are.
Dina, Adam, we've only got a few moments left. I want to wrap it up. We're going to have to meet again, hopefully before the end of the year. Emma and Liam and David, thank you everyone for watching. We've got a lame duck administration for the balance of its term. Dina, Adam, really quickly, 10 seconds each. Do you imagine them changing any of their perspective on crypto given what they saw play out in the election? Adam, go for
No,
it.
I would say no. So basically, because the Senate's going to turn over hands and Republicans have a trifecta, there's no incentive for them to bargain with the Democrats. I mean, there may be Democrats on the way out that want to try and get something done, but usually the way this works is they say, we're coming into power in a month and a half. We're just going to wait till we come into power.
Dina?
So I would say no, but everyone should keep an eye on the National Defense Authorization Act. It may not even be directed at crypto, but there's always surprises in there on AML and KYC that that people are always in shock. So I would say, and it's a long bill, so I'd say I would watch for things that may not even mention crypto in there that could have a significant impact on the industry.
Dina's going to make us read the NDAA over the holidays, Adam. Dina, Adam, we've got to leave it there. Thank you for everyone in the audience who joined us. We'll hopefully get another one in before the end of the year. If you missed any questions for Dina or Adam, info@wsba.co. I'm going to end it there, Dina. I'm going to put on new sunscreen, apparently, for my next meeting. It was great to see you both. Happy holidays, everyone. We'll chat again soon.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.